If you're listening today and technology feels like something you use every day but struggle to talk about in English, you're in exactly the right place. Phones, apps, social media, messages, videos, they're part of daily life now, and learning how to talk about them naturally can really boost your confidence in real conversations.
That's true. Technology is one of the most common conversation topics in modern English. People talk about their phones, their favorite apps, what they watch, how much time they spend online, and how technology affects their life. You don't need technical vocabulary to talk about these things. You just need simple, clear language.
And today, we're not teaching you complicated tech words. We're focusing on everyday English, the kind people actually use when chatting with friends, coworkers, or family. This is about comfort, clarity, and real communication.
Let's start with something very familiar. Almost everyone has a smartphone. So, a very natural question in English is, how often do you use your phone? This question is easy, but many learners don't know how to answer it beyond one short sentence.
So let's expand that answer naturally. I'll go first. I use my phone quite often during the day. I check messages in the morning, use it for work in the afternoon, and relax with videos or reading in the evening. I try not to use it too much at night because I want to sleep well.
That sounded very natural. Here's my version. I use my phone every day, mostly for communication and information. I message friends, check emails, and sometimes scroll through social media. I also use my phone to learn new things, especially listening to podcasts and watching educational videos.
Notice how both answers were calm and honest and personal. That's what makes English sound natural. You're not listing features, you're talking about habits.
Now, let's talk about social media, because this is something people often ask about. A common question is, do you use social media a lot? This question invites opinion, not just facts.
You could answer very simply, but you can also add feeling. For example, I use social media, but I try to control my time. I like staying connected with people, but I don't want to feel distracted all day.
And here's another natural answer. I use social media mostly to stay in touch with friends and follow topics I enjoy. Sometimes I take breaks because I notice I feel better when I spend less time online.
That sentence, I notice I feel better, is very powerful. It shows awareness and emotion, which makes your English sound thoughtful.
Let's model a full conversation now, the kind you might have at work or school.
So, do you use social media much?
I do, but not all the time. I usually check it in the morning and in the evening. During the day, I try to focus on work and avoid distractions.
That makes sense. What platforms do you use the most?
Mostly messaging apps and video platforms. I like watching short videos to relax, but I'm careful not to spend too much time scrolling.
That's very realistic English. No difficult words, just real life.
Another common topic is how technology helps or hurts daily life. People often say things like, technology makes life easier, or technology can be stressful. You can agree, disagree, or share your experience.
For example, I might say, technology helps me stay organized and connected, but sometimes it also makes me feel overwhelmed. When I use it carefully, it's very helpful. When I don't, it can distract me.
And I might say, technology saves me time and gives me access to information, but I also need to remind myself to rest my eyes and take breaks. Balance is important.
Now let's practice speaking longer without pressure. When you talk about technology, try using this simple structure in your mind. What you use, how you use it, and how you feel about it. This structure helps your thoughts flow naturally.
Let's give another example together. I use technology every day for work and learning. I check emails, join meetings, and listen to podcasts. I feel grateful for technology because it helps me grow, but I also try to limit screen time to protect my health.
Very natural, very clear.
Now let's slow things down for listeners who want to practice speaking aloud. Repeat this idea in your own words after listening. I use my phone every day, but I try to use it wisely. Say it again with your own feeling. Good.
And remember, your opinion matters. There is no right or wrong answer. Some people love social media. Some people avoid it. Both are okay. What matters is that you can express your thoughts calmly and clearly in English.
Before we finish this chapter, let's talk about one more real situation. Someone might ask you, what do you usually do online? This is a very open question.
You could answer like this. Online, I usually read articles, watch videos, and stay in touch with people. I try to use the internet to learn and relax, not just to pass time.
Or you might say, I mostly use the internet for work and communication. In my free time, I enjoy watching videos or listening to music. It helps me unwind after a long day.
These answers sound mature, natural, and confident, and that's exactly what we want for you.
As we continue, we'll go deeper into how technology affects communication, relationships, and daily habits. You'll get more chances to listen, repeat, and speak naturally.
For now, just remember this. You already know this topic. You live it every day. English is just the tool to talk about it.
Exactly. When conversations go beyond small talk, people often reflect on habits. For example, someone might say, I'm trying to reduce my screen time, or I've changed how I use social media lately. These sentences show intention and awareness, and they are very common in natural English.
Let's start with a very realistic situation. Imagine you're talking with a coworker or a classmate, and they say, I feel like I spend too much time online. This isn't just information, it's an invitation to connect.
A natural response might sound like this. I feel the same way sometimes. Technology is helpful, but it's easy to lose track of time. I've started setting limits for myself so I can focus better and feel less stressed.
Notice how that response shows empathy first, then personal experience. Native speakers often connect emotionally before giving opinions.
Let me model another example. I used to scroll on my phone without thinking, especially at night. Over time, I realized it affected my sleep and focus. Now I try to put my phone away earlier and spend more time offline.
That kind of reflection is very natural in professional and personal conversations. You're not complaining, you're explaining growth.
Now let's talk about social media and relationships, because this topic comes up often. People might say things like, social media helps me stay connected, or social media sometimes makes me feel disconnected. Both ideas are common.
Here's how I might explain my view. Social media helps me keep in touch with people I don't see often. At the same time, I think real conversations are more meaningful, so I try not to replace real connections with online ones.
And I might say this. I enjoy social media for learning and inspiration, but I'm careful about comparisons. I remind myself that what I see online isn't always real life.
That sentence, I remind myself, is very important. It shows awareness and emotional control, which makes your English sound confident and thoughtful.
Let's slow down and practice a longer, natural exchange.
Do you think technology has changed how people communicate?
Yes, definitely. Technology makes communication faster and easier, but sometimes it also feels less personal. I think it's important to use technology as a tool, not as a replacement for real conversations.
I agree. I feel that when people are intentional, technology can strengthen relationships. But when we use it without thinking, it can create distance instead of connection.
This kind of conversation is very common in workplaces, universities, and social settings. And notice, no complex vocabulary, just clear ideas.
Another topic that comes up often is learning through technology. People might ask, do you learn things online? This is a great opportunity to speak more.
A natural answer could be, yes, I learn a lot online. I use videos, podcasts, and articles to improve my skills. I like learning at my own pace, and technology makes that possible.
And I might add, online learning gives me flexibility, but I still believe discipline is important. Technology helps, but how you use it matters more.
That sentence sounds like something a professor or professional would say, calm, balanced, and reflective.
Now, let's practice guiding your thoughts. When talking about technology, try answering these 3 ideas naturally in one response: what you use, how it affects you, and what you're learning from it.
For example, I use technology daily for communication and learning. It helps me stay informed and connected, but I've learned that taking breaks improves my focus and well-being.
Very strong. That's natural spoken English.
Let's also talk about feelings, because native speakers often talk about how technology makes them feel stressed, relaxed, inspired, or distracted.
I might say, sometimes technology makes me feel overwhelmed, especially when there's too much information. When that happens, I step back and focus on one thing at a time.
And I could say, technology often makes my life easier, but I feel better when I use it with intention instead of habit.
These sentences show emotional intelligence, which is just as important as grammar.
Before we close this chapter, let's give listeners something practical. Think about one small change you've made or want to make in how you use technology. Then describe it in English.
For example, I'm trying to check my phone less in the morning so I can start my day calmly and focus on what matters.
Or, I've started using technology more intentionally by choosing content that helps me grow instead of distracts me.
Now, let's bring everything together and focus on how technology and social media fit into real-life conversations, not as a topic you study, but as something you live with. At this level, native speakers don't sound excited or dramatic. They sound calm, reflective, and intentional. That's the tone we're practicing here. Natural, thoughtful English that feels real.
Yes, and this is important because many learners think fluent English means fast English. But in real life, especially in professional or meaningful conversations, fluency often means clarity. It means you can explain your thoughts slowly, clearly, and with confidence, even when the topic is personal or complex.
Let's imagine a realistic conversation you might hear at work, in a class, or even with friends. Someone says, "I feel like technology is changing how I think." That's a deep statement, and it deserves a real response.
A natural reply could sound like this. I understand what you mean. Technology changes how we process information. I've noticed that I think faster, but sometimes less deeply, so I try to slow myself down and reflect more.
That response doesn't try to sound smart. It simply explains experience. Native speakers respect honesty more than perfect vocabulary.
Here's another version. I think technology influences my attention a lot. When I'm not careful, I jump between tasks too quickly. When I notice that, I intentionally step away and focus on one thing at a time.
Notice the verbs here. Notice, influence, focus. These are everyday academic words. Very common, very useful.
Now, let's talk about social media in a more balanced way. Many learners either praise it too much or criticize it too strongly. Native speakers often stay in the middle.
For example, I might say, social media has value for learning and connection, but I don't think it should control how we feel about ourselves. I try to use it consciously instead of emotionally.
And I could add, I've learned that social media works best when I decide why I'm using it. When I'm clear about my purpose, it feels helpful instead of distracting.
Those sentences sound mature and professional. This is the kind of English people use in meetings, interviews, and serious conversations.
Let's practice a longer exchange, the kind that builds trust between speakers.
Do you think people can have a healthy relationship with technology?
Yes, I think it's possible, but it requires awareness. Technology itself isn't the problem. The challenge is how unconsciously we sometimes use it. When people reflect on their habits, they usually find better balance.
I agree. I've noticed that when I set boundaries with technology, I feel more present and focused. It's not about avoiding technology, but about choosing how and when to use it.
And I could add, I've learned that social media works best when I decide why I'm using it. When I'm clear about my purpose, it feels helpful instead of distracting.
Those sentences sound mature and professional. This is the kind of English people use in meetings, interviews, and serious conversations.
Let's practice a longer exchange, the kind that builds trust between speakers.
Do you think people can have a healthy relationship with technology?
Yes, I think it's possible, but it requires awareness. Technology itself isn't the problem. The challenge is how unconsciously we sometimes use it. When people reflect on their habits, they usually find better balance.
I agree. I've noticed that when I set boundaries with technology, I feel more present and focused. It's not about avoiding technology, but about choosing how and when to use it.
This kind of dialogue shows listening, agreement, and personal insight, all signs of advanced communication.
Now, let's talk about how native speakers end conversations like this. They often summarize their thoughts gently without sounding final or absolute.
For example, overall, I think technology plays a big role in our lives, and learning how to use it wisely is an ongoing process. I'm still learning, just like everyone else.
That sentence leaves space for growth. Very natural.
I might close with something like, technology will keep changing, but our responsibility stays the same. We need to stay aware of how it affects our thinking, our time, and our relationships.
That's a strong closing because it's calm, reflective, and human. Now, let's shift into something personal for you as a listener. Think about one conversation you could have this week about technology or social media. It doesn't need to be long or serious, just honest.
You might say something as simple as, I've been thinking more about how I use my phone lately, and I'm trying to be more mindful.
Or, social media helps me learn, but I'm also learning when to step away.
Say it out loud, even if it feels slow, especially if it feels slow. That's how real English develops.
Before we finish, remember this. Fluent English is not about sounding perfect. It's about expressing real thoughts in a clear and calm way.
Every time you listen, every time you repeat, and every time you speak honestly, you're building something lasting.
You're not memorizing English, you're living it.
Thank you for spending this time with us. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep trusting the process.